January 2nd in 2018, our Speaker Dave Sunday was sworn in as York County's District Attorney. In his address, he highlighted two major priorities, the heroin epidemic and his desire to seek justice regardless of what it looked like. Dave seeks to keep York safe by effectively working with the entire law enforcement community in fairly investigating and aggressively prosecuting criminal activity, enforcing the law, and protecting the rights of all citizens and those who are victims of crimes. Dave's desire to serve began when he was age 18 and he enlisted in the United States Navy, serving in multiple tours abroad. And following his service to our country, Dave received a finance degree from Penn State University. It was during that time that Dave's strong work ethic was born, working his way up from a UPS delivery driver to running the finance department and being tasked with the oversight of a $200 million budget. While working at UPS, Dave received his law degree by attending night classes at Widener's Law School. And after a brief stint in the United Nations and private practice, Dave moved back to York to begin a clerkship with Judge Joe Adams. Dave joined the DA's office in 2009 after being hired by the former District Attorney Stan Reber and ascended to becoming the Deputy Prosecutor under DA Tom Kearney. Just as a side note, for those who wonder what do DAs do once they leave office, they evidently hike the Appalachian Trail. So Tom is now 200 miles into his journey as we speak, and he's got quite the beard going. Dave showed me a picture. Over the past 9 years, Dave has tried many high-profile cases ranging from white-collar crime to homicides, and as mentioned this past January, Dave Sunday began serving as the Chief Law Enforcement Officer as District Attorney for York County. Dave will briefly discuss his changes in roles and what his experiences have been over the intervening 3.5 months as lead person for the DA's office, and then we'll discuss the Group Violence Intervention Project. The Group Violence Intervention Project facilitates direct, sustained engagement with a small number of core offenders through a partnership of community leaders, social service providers, and law enforcement standing and acting together with an explicit focus on homicide and serious violence. Dave's joined here by his very lovely wife, Shani. And fellow Rotarians and guests, I would ask that you warmly welcome our current DA, Dave Sunday.
Well, thank you very much for that introduction. I appreciate being here. I think it's exciting, and we don't have a lot of time, so I'm going to try to get as much in as I can. And I want this to be interactive, so if anyone has any questions, feel free to just jump in and ask. Before I get started, one of the things I want to say very briefly is, you know, as a district attorney, your goal is to build upon what other DAs have done before you. And so we've had many DAs over the years that served in York County very admirably and have done many amazing things. And I believe we may have one with us here today. So we have Judge Euler is sitting there. Now, a lot of you may not know that Judge Euler was a former district attorney of York County. And so I was thinking about that today before I came in, and just for what it's worth, Judge Euler served as DA from 1978 through 1982. And when Judge Euler took office, 2 movies opened up in the movie theaters. It was Grease and Animal House. And in addition to that, the price of gas was 63 cents a gallon. And so, you know, but it's an honor to be here speaking with Judge Euler, and I just wanted to throw that out there. I thought it was funny. A couple of things that I want to talk about. A lot of people don't understand what the DA's office really is and what the DA's office is made of. And what I mean by that is I'm talking about the amount of people, the amount of employees, and what they do. And so I put some numbers together here just to let you know what exactly is in the DA's office. And so that being said, and I want to make sure I get this right, because our administrator, Kyle King, is here, and I don't want to put Kyle in a bad place. So we have 30 attorneys in the DA's office here in York County. We have 10 detectives, and those detectives work directly for the district attorney, and they assist in prosecution and also investigations in some cases. We have 47 administrative staff. We have 5 common pleas court judges that are full-time criminal court judges, 19 magistrate district court judges, and throughout the business year, I'll say business days of the year, we have 79 days dedicated to criminal jury trials. And we work very hard to do everything in our power to make sure those days are packed full of criminal jury trials, so we keep judges like Judge Musty Cook busy and make sure that that's very important to us. In addition to that, during the very poignant prayer that opened this today, the comment was made about crime generally. And there's something I want to talk about. Right now, last night I spoke at the it's the York County Crime Victims Vigil. And this week is National Crime Victims Week. And in preparing for that discussion last night, I did some research. And what a lot of people don't understand with regard to crime trends is that as a nation, it's sort of like a bell curve has occurred. And it goes back to so the last 50 years, okay, crime was down. And it went up tremendously nationally until 1992, and then it's come down again. And believe it or not, as a country, we are currently at the lowest amount of crime since 1992. Now the problem with that is you're looking at a nation, obviously, of 50 states and all the different cities, and that doesn't make us feel happy and safe here in York when we may hear of a shooting or something of that nature. And so although crime generally has gone down, what are we doing here in York County? And once I get my data out of the way, then we'll jump into some meat here. But so in York County last year, and actually we're gonna look at the city itself. I want to talk about York City. So criminal homicide cases last year, we had 8 in 2016. We had 14 in 2017. So of all the categories of crime in the city of York, 2 went up, the rest went down. 1 was criminal homicide. Sex-related offenses went down. Robberies went down, although I'll say it's negligible. Assaults went down. Property offenses, that's gone down. Now drug offenses have gone up. And so we have drug offenses going up, we have homicides going up in the city of York. And when we look at the cases overall, how many cases does the district attorney's office prosecute per year? And for the attorneys in the room, I'm sure that you'll have some appreciation to what this actually means for your daily life. And so last year, in 2017, we had 8,279 adult criminal cases. 8,279 adult criminal cases were filed here in York County. And in juvenile cases, we had 1,526 juvenile cases were filed here in York County as well. And so that's a tremendous amount of cases, especially for 30 attorneys. And so one of the challenges, and before I spoke, it was sort of like I want you to talk generally about the office and then talk about something in a focused manner. And so generally, although I was the chief of litigation, I had, I'll say, about a third of the pie. Now as DA, in 4 months, one of the very first things I did was I assigned our new chief county detective, his name is Art Smith. Some of you may know him, some of you may not. He's a retired police chief from West Manchester. Art's been a police officer for close to 40 years. And I said, I want you to do an assessment on the needs of York County law enforcement. And he conducted that assessment. He and my new assistant chief county detective, Jeff Spence. Some of you may be familiar with Jeff Spence, longtime homicide detective in the city of York. And they conducted that assessment. And as a result of that, there are a few areas that came up as being issues. And it's kind of interesting because this came up at the exact same time period when something else happened in our community. And so what they said to me was, they said, Dave, we have a major issue with regard to law enforcement's ability to react to certain types of cybercrime. Okay? And when I'm talking about cybercrime, what I mean specifically are our phones and also our computers. And so what happens in law enforcement traditionally, a crime occurs, a police officer investigates it. Let's say there's a shooting in the city of York. There's a shooting, the police go. The first thing they do, canvass the neighborhood for witnesses. They find witnesses, then they interview them. They go find, see if any local businesses or homes may have a video. They'll check the videos. They'll work the street, and they'll work their sources, and they'll work their confidential sources, and their informants, and they'll do everything they can to try to find who did it. Well, in today's world, that process has changed drastically as a result of cell phones and computers. Okay, so not only must a police officer have the ability to talk to people and convince them to provide them with information, and also to think on their feet like, Sherlock Holmes or whoever whatever detective you may think of, but they also have to have the ability at the exact same time to be able to utilize all the resources electronically. Because children, well, we'll get to that in a second, but criminals know how to use the computer and how to use phones in a manner that is almost, if not greater in sophistication than a lot of our police. Okay, and I'm a believer in rooting out problems, no matter how painful and cruddy they are, and fixing them. And so this is a cold, hard truth, is that law enforcement in York County needs additional resources, training, so that they can handle cybercrime. So I'm getting this lecture, okay, and at the exact same time, I get a phone call on the exact same day, and it's Chief Dan Stump in Springsbury. Now I'm going to be very careful what I talk about because this is an ongoing criminal case, and so I'm not going to speak at all about the case itself. I'm going to talk about some tangential issues that came up as a result of this. And he said, we've had some school threats, I need you to come out here. So I went out, I talked to Chief Stump, the week progressed. And during the course of this week, we had obviously a threat in Central School District, and so we're sitting there in a room and we're talking about the issue. And what we realized very quickly was, my God, these kids know so much more than any of us do. And it started very simply with the very first, hello, Mr. Kuhleber. We're here to talk about your son. We'd like to talk to you about his Instagram account. Well, my son doesn't have an Instagram account. Yes, he does. No, he doesn't. Yes, he does. And so what we learned very quickly was, I'm going to say almost every single kid had access to applications on their phones and social media that the parents had absolutely no clue, not only that their kid was doing it, but what it was in the first place. So I have some examples here, very briefly. And I want to start with, so I'm assuming that everyone in here utilizes, well, I know for a fact that many people in here utilize Facebook. And so how many people in here use Facebook? Okay, almost everyone. We all know what Twitter is, so I can skip on that from that. Snapchat. Have we heard of Snapchat? Instagram. Well, then we have Messenger. We have Messenger Kids. We have WhatsApp. And by the way, Messenger Kids was set up specifically by Facebook messaging to be a safe alternative for kids to begin their life of messaging. And so that's what Messenger Kids is. Okay, there's another one called WhatsApp, Discord, Tumblr, Musical.ly, Kick, Hangouts, Google Duo, Skype, House Party, Twitch, YouTube, and Reddit. So my guess is a lot of people in here don't know what a lot of those are. I would guess that that's the case. I see a couple people are like, yeah, I have all of them, but generally speaking, those people don't. And so that morning I get a lecture from my detectives on what we need. Then we go through this process. Well, I came out the other side of this process a much more knowledgeable prosecutor and parent with regard to what kids are doing online. And I will tell you that, without going into details, I was truly actually saddened at the dialogue and discourse that occurs between these kids on social media. And what I mean by that is, I had an opportunity to sort of look behind the curtain during this situation at a very large quantity of students and their cell phones and what they're doing online. And the thing that saddened me was the amount of online bullying that's taking place. Okay, and when I was a kid, if someone was bullied, it kind of stopped at the end of the day. You got home, it's good. You're safe until tomorrow. It doesn't stop in today's world, and it literally never stops. And because someone that goes on a social media app, because someone goes online, they can do it under different usernames. And so when a parent looks at it, they don't see Dave Sunday calling Kyle King a bad name. They see, they see, you know, whatever the name is, I don't know, and they see like sheriff, you know, sheriff number 1 making fun of someone else, and they have no idea who that is. So because of that anonymity, these kids are emboldened. And with that being said, I said to our detectives, you know, what do we do to solve crimes like this where things come up on social media? Because what happens is, what a lot of people don't know, we can't call these different social media sites and say, we'd like you to please give us all the information on this situation. Okay? That's first and foremost. Because, and as it should be, everyone has a constitutional right. We have to prove, you know, probable cause to get a search warrant to look at something. And so, for example, what often happens is every single one of those, like the names I just read you, they have a different compliance department. They have a different set of rules with regard to what they release on a search warrant. They also have a different set of rules with regard to what they actually keep in their possession. And that's very, very important. So, for example, Snapchat, okay, and I'm going to say 80% of the kids are on Snapchat. Okay, and does anyone here, who does not know what Snapchat is? And it's okay, you know. So what happens is, it's designed in a way, and I feel comfortable in here, I wouldn't have quite the same conversation with kids because I don't want to give them ideas, but Snapchat was designed for this purpose. Because what it does is you send a message to someone, and then after they read it, guess what happens to that message? It's gone. It is gone. And the way that they save their data means it's gone from them as well. And so you cannot, no matter how wonderfully written your search warrant is, there is no data to get. And so as a result of that, not only are criminals utilizing these social media or these different applications every single day, you know, but unfortunately kids are too. And so this was something that I'm going to say was extremely striking and very telling to me as I've progressed over the last few months. And so as a result of that, we had a tough question in the office, and the question was, what do we have to do to be better at rapidly responding to the needs of law enforcement in our community with regard to social media, cybercrime, and forensic analysis. And so that's something that will be coming soon. And so we're going to be creating a cyber team for York County. It's going to be a team created of experts who have the ability and time to accurately and quickly go through phones, analyze data. Like, the world isn't like NCIS, and that's what a lot of people don't understand. I bounce a lot of ideas off my dad. My dad's 76. And so, of course, he's like, well, in NCIS, the girl with the green hair, she has that in 2 seconds. So, and I'm like, no, it doesn't work like that. And so, and although I say that in jest, a lot of people do believe that, but that's not the case. And so the other thing is, in York County, and unfortunately we live in a world where child porn has gone up. And that's child porn is shared back and forth on computers. And that's something that police have the ability to stop if they have the resources. Because, and I can't go into sources and methods, but what I can tell you is, if we have an additional experts in certain areas, that will allow us to get ahead of its situations sometimes before they occur. And so this is something that I'm going to make another priority for the DA's office, because it is absolutely critical that our law enforcement officers have the tools they need to do the job. Okay, it's not fair to ask them to do something and not give them the tools to do the job, especially in the world we live in today. And so, for example, in York County, we have 23 municipal police departments and 446,000 citizens. And of that size, that large, and I told you how many cases we have, right now we have 3 people in York County that are analyzing cell phones and computers. Okay? And that's not good. That's bad, bad, bad. And so that's something that we really need to remedy. You know, that's something that I've identified as a major issue, and that's something that we are going to work on very aggressively. Moving on to, and I apologize if I'm talking fast, but I'm trying to get a lot in before I get the hook here. The other thing I want to talk about, the Group Violence Initiative. Okay, so for those of you that have heard of the Group Violence Initiative, most people probably have heard of the Group Violence Initiative. I hope you have. But what that is a program that originated in a few different areas. It originated in Detroit, Chicago, and in, I think, Providence, Rhode Island. And so this program is a result of a criminologist who works for the John Jay College of Criminal Justice in New York. And he did like a 20-year study on causes of shootings and what you can do to decrease those shootings. And this is very important because in today's world of limited resources, we have to utilize every tool we have to maximize a return on the work done by police. And so as a result of this study, it was determined that there is a method that can be used to decrease gun violence. And one of the major, huge parts of this study that is absolutely critical to understand is that for all the shootings that occur, all the shooting homicides that occur, they are done, 80% of them are done by, we're going to call them groups of people. Okay, I don't want to use the term gang because the term gang is like, there are groups of people in today's world that hang out together that don't have the traditional, they may not have certain, I'll say, characteristics of an actual gang, but they're groups, social groups, peer groups. And in addition to that, half of 1% of all the citizens can do 80% of all the shootings. And the majority of that half of 1% are juveniles. And so the question becomes, how do we get to those people? And so through a long process of, in these other cities, of data and data collection, evidence gathering, a program resulted from it. It's called the Group Violence Initiative. And so the core part of that program is to basically go into the community and identify those groups who are the most likely to commit shootings. And what the study has shown is that if you just go to people and say, all right, next person that commits a shooting or a homicide, we are going to destroy you. That doesn't stop it. It doesn't stop it because what has come out of all of these studies is, and this is data driven, is that the power of the peer group overcomes everything. And what I mean by that is, if your peer group doesn't want you to kill someone, you're not going to do it. If your peer group doesn't care, and the police say don't do it, studies have shown they're going to do it. Okay? And we can debate from now until the end of time the causes of that, which, but that being said, as a result of that, this targets groups. And what I mean by that is, it targets groups not only to say, if one person in your group commits a crime of violence, and you shoot someone, we're going to, within the power of the law, prosecute everyone in your group for every crime they've committed. The goal of that is to put the pressure on the group itself. Now, to make that work, you have to identify the group. And to identify the group, you have to utilize law enforcement methods. You have to utilize a relationship with the community through pastors, through voices, we call it the moral voices in the community, through parents, through people that just want to talk about it. And we discuss it and we find out who these groups are. Now, the other part to that is, now, if you choose not to commit a crime, we're going to help you. And so what we do is we bring, some of you in this room have been to a call-in or two, but we'll bring people into what's called a call-in. And so we'll pick usually around 10 people, we'll bring them into a safe place, and we will have different people speak to them. And what's going to be said to them, the first person that always talks is the mayor, the second person is the York City Police Chief, the third person is the DA, after me is usually a minister, followed by Matt Carey. Now, for those of you who don't know Matt Carey is in charge of the artist formerly known as the York Rescue Mission. And what we say to them is, listen, we do not want you to commit a crime of violence. What we want to do is help you. And when I say help, if you actually talk to people who are repeat shooters, we call them, they're going to tell you that they don't want, the help that they need is actually unbelievably more basic than what you would think. I need diapers for my kid. I need someone to, we actually had this, my dog is dying, and can you help me find a vet? We don't have food for breakfast tomorrow. And so what we've done is we give every person in this group all the information they need. It's a hotline that goes to all kinds of people 24 hours a day. And we say, if you have an issue that comes up, you call us, and we will help you get through it. Because the whole goal of this program is to stop death. That is the goal of this program. Okay, if we view the program in a whole and say our goal is to fix the problems of the world, then, you know, years from now there'll be another DA standing here telling you the exact same thing, and this community will be in the same place. And so what we've been doing works, but it hasn't worked good enough, and so we're trying something new. As a result of that, what then happens is, when the next shooting occurs, if it does occur, then what we do is it's called we do a GVI, it's called a Group Violence Initiative, I forget the actual name of it, but it's a response that occurs by police. And so then what they do is they go to the area where the incident occurred, and they'll knock on every door for blocks and blocks and blocks. And they will give the individual cards and say, we're here as a result of the recent shooting. Shootings bring police. Shootings, you know, cause death and suffering. Here's a card. If you need any help, let us know. By the way, who did the shooting? Okay. Oh, I smell marijuana. So now you have given me probable cause to enter your home. And what they do then is they go ahead and they find members of the group and they go after them. And that's critical because, again, studies show that the peer response is vastly more powerful than any other response known to man. Sheriff Kuhleber, me, 100 police officers could stand here and look at someone and say, you know, a hardened I call shooter, and say, if you shoot someone again, I'm going to put you in jail forever. And it will have no effect. The peer group is where the effect comes from. And that is absolutely critical to the success of this program. How am I doing on time?
You're doing good.
Okay.
You have 5 minutes before the 2 minutes.
Okay. And so the Group Violence Initiative across the country has worked, and it has decreased up to 30%. It has caused decreases in up to 30% of gun violence in the areas where it has been done correctly. And so, you know, the DA's office, I am absolutely 1,000% committed to making sure that we provide the resources and the follow-through for this program. The New York City Police Department also is a core partner in this as well. And that sort of, I'm going to segue into another topic very briefly, and that is the topic of collaboration. I am a firm believer in collaboration. It stems back to, I'm going to say, you know, team sports when I was a kid. We have an attorney in our office who's very brilliant, and although the person has team issues. And we had to talk the other day, I'm like, did you play any sports when you were a kid? He's like, no. And I said, okay, well, but that's neither here nor there. And so when I was in the Navy, I had a Master Chief, and he was a very tough guy. And he became sort of a role model for me. And he made it very clear to me and everyone in our division that the success of the division is more important than the success of any one individual. And so if your people that work for you do well, you do well. If your boss is doing well, you're doing well. If the team succeeds, then we all succeed. And so that is the lens through which I want everyone in my office to view what we do. And so under the topic of teamwork, that comes along with collaboration. And so, for example, shortly, one of the things that came up previously over time was, you know, we had the York County District Attorney's Office, and we had the Drug Task Force, and there were some issues there. Everybody's back together. They all sit side by side. They work together every day, and that's something that is absolutely critical. It is critical because, you know, that cohesion, that collaboration is the only way you can have success in doing a job that they do that is unbelievably difficult under tremendously tough situations, and, you know, which is evident by the fact that one of our New York City police officers a few months ago, unfortunately, was shot. And he was shot in the elbow, and that's causing him a lot of problems. I mean, Sheriff Kuhleber has been through that as well, and none of us want to see that happen. And so with that being said, in collaboration, GVI, the Group Violence Initiative, is founded on collaboration because there are a tremendous amount of unintended good consequences that have come out of this initiative. So for example, for GVI to work, it takes the DA's office, it takes the police departments, it takes probation and parole, it takes community service providers to work together every single day. And I don't mean work together in the sense that, all right, we'll see you next month for a 10-minute meeting. It's every single day. And we've developed tremendous relationships from this. Bridges have been built, and they're being crossed, and it's being absolutely fantastic. And so, you know, with that being said, another place of collaboration, and I'm going to move into this real quick, is, you know, when I took over as DA, one of the first places I went was a Children's Advocacy Center. And some of you may be familiar with what that is, some of you may not. but the Children's Advocacy Center is a nonprofit that works, and it's in the city of York. And what they do is when children are victims of crime and they need to be interviewed, well, this is one of their main things they do. Those children go to this place to be interviewed, okay? And the purpose for that is because you don't want to take a child who's already been traumatized and put them in front of, and no offense guys, in front of a uniformed officer who may not have the training to talk to a kid. And so we have trained forensic interviewers, and they are extremely good at what they do. And they work at the Children's Advocacy Center, and it's sad to know that they interview people every single day. Every single day. And so that is a critical component to the health of our society and the health of our community, because as you may know or may not know, when kids are subjected to childhood trauma, then that makes the likelihood of them becoming criminals as adults exponentially greater. And so our goal is to make sure that we handle those cases properly. Now, the Children's Advocacy Center is now embarking on a project to create a new, it's called the co-located facility. And the co-located facility is where the Children's Advocacy Center will work, and we have what's called a multidisciplinary team. And that team is made up of forensic interviewers, nurses, doctors, prosecutors, police officers, and social workers. And another component that is absolutely critical that up to this point has been woefully bad, and I think everyone would agree on that, is mental health counseling. Because we want to stop kids from becoming traumatized, and what we want to create is one place, a building, and inside that building we will have everybody in there. It's a one-stop shop, okay? So a child doesn't have to keep coming back over and over again to be interviewed, or go to the doctor, or talk to a prosecutor. It'll all be in one place, and it'll be geared towards making it so that that child will not be re-traumatized. And I wanted to give a plug for that very quickly, because that's something that is, some people in this room I believe are working on. It's something that's absolutely critical to the safety of our community, and in the long term, and one of the things, and I'll close with this, is, I have discovered over, I'm going to kind of freestyle here a little bit, but I have discovered during the course of my campaign, during other campaigns I've worked on, and just being a general member of society, that too many times difficult matters become subject to the political cycle. And so what I mean by that is, it's an election, 2 years later there's another election, 4 years later there's another election, and certain things that are paramount to the health of a community become hot button issues for a day or two, they go away. They come back and they go away. Well, we don't want to see that happen. And so when we're all long gone, we want to see change. And that, for example, was was the Heroin Task Force, which is now the York Opioid Collaborative. We did that for a reason. We wanted to make sure that, and it's ultimately shortly going to become a nonprofit, will be a long-term entity that is subject only to itself and will not live or die at the whim of a politician. And that is something that must be done for the community. And that's the same with things like, for example, the Children's Advocacy Center and the co-located facility. These are things that must outlive the ups and downs of our world. And that's something I'm dedicated to. And so some of the things that I want to do may not solve the problems of the world in a couple days, but it will certainly set the seeds to make York a much healthier, happier place, so that everyone, so I have a 3-year-old son, and I am absolutely terrified, quite frankly, at the world that he may have to grow up in. And I kind of feel bad for him in a way, and I got to find a way to not be, I don't know. Paranoid, right. But what I will tell you is, the one place that he and I will tangle is with this. Because I have seen what goes on in these, and that is a major problem. So, I tried to pack in as much as I could in the time I had. I apologize if I moved to a few different topics. I wanted to give you as much information as I could. I'll stick around for a while if anyone has any questions. I think that hopefully, you took something from this. Hopefully I said something that might be thought-provoking, that, if someone says, I have a great idea to fix that problem, please let me know. Because we want to know. And we want to get input from people, and we want to, come up with ideas that we may not think of. And so I'm just, I'm very proud to stand here. I'm honored. It is an absolute honor to be the district attorney. Every day I'm thankful for it, and you know, when that stops being the case, I won't do it anymore. And so thank you everyone for having me speak, and my wife hears me speak enough, so thank you for coming along with me today. But thank you so much, I appreciate it, and have a wonderful day.